All right.
Go ahead.
Okay, Dad. So the number one question I think I got on the last video was,
Why don't you tell your viewers we had to come back?
oh yeah. So we're out. It was sunny when we left, and we're out there for like 15 minutes. Next thing you know, huge dark cloud rolls in, and so we started heading back, and about what, half a mile before we got here, it started raining.
And the Weather Bureau said it wasn't going to start until maybe almost 2 o'clock.
Oh yeah,
So,
they were a little off.
So much for 97% accurate for the Weather Channel.
Right. So, like I said, the main question or comment I probably get is, what is the other car in the garage? Now, keep in mind, we did that other video about 6 years ago, at least.
It was a 1965 Impala. I'm trying to think, I bought it. It was sometime in the 80s. I can't remember, although I had it 20 years, so...
Maybe you got it in the 90s.
It was in the 90s, maybe I got it, yeah. And it did need paint work. It had a lot of rust. And that same friend of mine that did the work on this car, he repainted it.
Where was the rust? I don't remember.
Around the rear window. It was the fastback,
okay,
which your viewers probably know. The GM cars up till about 1967, until I corrected that problem, they were always prone to rust at the bottom of the rear window because it was a fastback.
Right.
I kept it 20 years, and I sold it to a good friend of mine, and he has since sold it. And I think the motor was taken out, and the transmission. It was 283 with a power glide. It just ran great. It was really a good car.
And he put a crate engine in a 350
yeah, I think he
crate
put
engine.
A crate 350 in, and he put a 350 turbo hydromatic in.
But the bottom line is, you sold that car a long time ago.
Right. I don't have it anymore. It's been gone now, I guess, 4 years. But at the time, I guess that was in 2017 we took the last video.
I don't remember. It might have been.
Yeah, and of course it was right over here. Why? I was buying new cars and they were sitting out in the driveway. So I figured, well, and after 4 years, the way they're making cars now with all the plastic on them, I don't have to tell you what it does, the sun does to it.
Yeah, anyway, you weren't using it that much, right?
I wasn't using it that much, and I guess it was just time to move on. And since it was not like this car,
it didn't have the sentimental value.
Right, I didn't have the sentimental value, and the car wasn't worth as much as this car.
Right.
As I'm sure your viewers probably know if they go check on prices.
Yeah. Especially this year.
That's the reason why I was going.
So yeah, so unfortunately we can't do a video on the other car.
Right.
I might have some. I will check and see if I have any videos from years ago or photos, and maybe I can make a little video about it, but we can't do anything now. Somebody asked, are you going to change the rear springs in the GTO?
I don't think so presently. They were changed years ago. Okay, I know it sits a little higher in the back. I did, about just a few months ago, I finally put, something I always wanted to do is a rear sway bar. It's amazing how these cars did not come with that. I know the Oldsmobile 442 was the only one that did at the time. But if you replace this sway bar, if anybody is interested in, when you make corners, you're going to see a big difference the way the car handles. It really does. And also the box control arms have changed.
So where did you get them from?
Was it OPGI? I would have to
the
check
parts place, OPGI?
The parts place was the sway bar, and OPGI was the control arms.
Okay.
So
they're factory control arms that have been boxed.
Yes.
And you just swapped out the original.
And very good quality stuff.
Okay.
7/8 inch bar. I didn't go with the 1 inch bar.
When you first got the car, shortly after, you changed out all the original springs for taller springs, because that was what, something that was popular back then?
I think it was in 1966, but the front end sat up way too high. And I put up with it for so many years. And the bad thing about that, when you do that, you go through lower ball joints like crazy. They don't last maybe 2 years. You got to replace them. But
so the back you just left from those high riser, whatever springs, and you put the originals in.
I don't know if the viewers will know it or not, but if you look at the factory literature of these cars, the way they looked. Here's a good picture.
Yeah, it
The
looks
cars,
really low.
the cars sat very low from the factory. They all were like that. And I guess that's probably one of the reasons why that most people did change the springs.
Okay. What made you decide to go with a GTO versus anything else at that time that was
Well,
out?
if you remember correctly, the Mustangs came out, but they were nothing to speak of at the time. But there wasn't anything in what they call a mid-size car, which this is supposed to be. And meanwhile, it's a big car compared to the cars today. I knew they were fast, and my first car was a Buick, but it was a 61 Buick with a 364 nail head, 2-barrel. You know, it was a Dynaflow transmission. But anyway, when the car came out, I just figured that, you know, this is the way to go.
Okay.
So I decided to buy this, and then of course, as we all know, as the years progressed, every other maker kind of jumped on the bandwagon, and they made their own muscle car. Every GM division did, Chrysler did, and of course Ford did too. But
So, when the 64 GTO first came out, were you interested in getting that, or you waited?
I think
it was
maybe
really
that's-
when the 65 came out.
That's pretty much swayed me.
When
Okay, but
the
at
new
that-
65, the look,
Yeah, the way it looked, the way they changed the whole front end, and they went to traditional
the stacked
the
headlights.
stacked headlights. Basically, the 64 and 5 are identical. The glass is the same. The only thing they did from the firewall up was they just changed the whole front clip.
I saw somebody selling one recently somewhere. It was a 64, and they had the whole 65 front clip on it.
Oh, they did? They put it on the
Yeah.
64?
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm
The
sure
back,
it
the
fits.
back was 64.
I do believe that the doors are the same, the rear quarters are the same.
So, what was the difference in the drivetrain from 64 to 65?
Pretty much the same, except they pushed the horsepower up, and the reason they pushed it up on the tri-power was this 389 has the 421 cam, and that's where they picked up the horsepower from 348 to 360. The same thing with the Carter AFB.
The 4-barrel
It went from 3 1/4 to 335.
by the different cam.
But, right. Although the cam was slightly milder, I think, in the 4-barrel.
Okay.
All right.
Wasn't the
It's
same.
the same cam that maybe like a Bonneville would have had, or a Ventura with a 389. But this one actually has the 421 cam right in the factory. In fact, the last 3 numbers, I believe, it's the 068 cam.
Right.
And anybody that knows Pontiacs,
That's a very
yeah,
popular
they would recognize that.
So you didn't buy this off the lot. You special ordered it.
Oh yeah, it was ordered. Yeah, in fact, I was on active duty in the military, and my brother and my aunt went to, it was South Shore Pontiac on Long Island on Merrick Road in Valley Stream. They ordered the car when I was just about ready to come home, and yeah, it was ordered and it was brand new. But the problem was, it was ordered in November of '64. I did not get the car until March of '65, and it was only
Oh,
years,
it's a long time.
many years later, I found out the reason that it took 3.5 months. Because you couldn't get them at the dealer. You'd go around and you'd get an automatic 4-barrel with no positive.
You couldn't get the tri-power 4-speed. They were sold
absolutely
out.
not. You were lucky to get a 4-barrel. Okay, it took that amount of time, and the reason it took that amount of time, which maybe a lot of people don't know, there was a GM part strike at the end of 1964. The United Auto Workers, they went on strike, the ones that
Okay.
worked for General Motors. So you couldn't get parts, the cars weren't being built, and I, kept going back to the dealer, and they couldn't give me the date. So again, it was ordered in November of '64. I think I got it around St. Patrick's Day in 1965. It took 3.5 months to get the car.
Wow. Well worth the wait in the long
Yeah.
run, though.
Well, but then again, I don't know, maybe 3 years after I bought it, I was thinking about maybe a 442. But, then 10 years turned into 20, and 20 turned into 30. And now I've got it 56 years.
So you were looking at what, like a 68?
68, I went to
442.
actually a showroom, and I was looking at the 68 Oldsmobile 442. But I didn't buy it.
Those are nice cars, too. So what did you order on this car?
Okay, it's very low option. Single speed wipers. The tri-power. The 390 gearing.
The posi traction,
Posi traction.
that was an
yeah.
option, too?
metallic brake linings, which are gone because
Yeah.
they were good they were good, but when the car was cold and you stepped on the brake, they would squeal like crazy.
But they have good stopping power.
But it was a little better than the asbestos for at the time. So this is just regular conventional brakes on here. I guess they're, what are they selling now? The brakes there.
Well, ceramic they
Yeah.
have, or they have semi-metallic.
Yeah, it might be that. I recently had all the wheel cylinders changed because the brakes were locking up on me.
And you ordered, as far as inside the car, you ordered. Oh well, you
AM,
ordered.
AM radio, and
AM.
another thing is I got the rally pack, which is the tachometer, the water temperature, and the oil pressure. They still gave you a red light for the amp meter.
Okay.
But-
So
Yeah,
it wasn't
again,
like
very
now where
much.
it was like all these packages. You had to order everything
Oh
individually.
yeah, it's not like the cars of today like this. You know, you take what they have, or you don't like that, then go to another car or get another package that you want. You could tailor these cars for everything you wanted, right down to a heavy-duty battery.
And you got power brakes, but not power steering.
Right. It has no power steering. It only has one fan belt.
And why did you go with that?
Because power steering takes off. Everybody said, no, that
Takes horsepower away?
15 to 20 horsepower.
Okay.
So there's only one fan belt.
Yeah. Okay. Did you have anything go wrong, like any major issues over the years?
Now, the only thing that I had issues with, which eventually I did change, is the linkage, the Hurst linkage. When it came from the factory, it was very strange the way they did this. They had these friction grab that would grab onto the rod and you would just tighten it.
Mm-hmm.
It was not a threaded rod.
Oh.
And it would get hung up in gear and you could not get it out of gear until you get underneath to get it into the right position. So to remedy that problem, I changed to, they came out with a threaded linkage.
Yeah.
So once you did that, it couldn't possibly move, and I've never had a problem since. The car is on its third clutch.
Okay.
I had a 3-finger ring in between. It was the first one from the factory. Then I did a 3-finger, very hard stepping down on. So then when I did it a third time, my friend and I did it. He worked for Pontiac. I put a regular conventional diaphragm clutch. It was probably in the early 80s, and it's still in there. It's working fine.
What is the exhaust you have on it now? It's not original. That's long gone.
yeah,
Right?
of course the exhaust is going to change.
Back then, exhaust would rot out.
Yeah, I have
a couple of years.
the thrush mufflers, I think, and I've got the from the muffler back, it's stainless steel.
So it's a chambered muffler, like
Yeah.
a Flowmaster, but
Yes.
it's thrush.
Right.
Oh, and over the years, you were able to keep it in nice condition because it was pretty much always garaged.
Yes, there were times when I first got it in the first few years, when I lived, of course, at home with my mother and father. It was a 2-car garage. Sometimes it was out in the driveway. But then it got to a point, and I think when I joined the Pontiac Oakland Club, it's been garaged ever since then.
Well, I know you told me when you rented your first place, the lady let you use the garage.
Right. I lived in a 2-family house. I should say I rented upstairs, and there was an elderly lady there who did not have a car, and I used the garage, and I paid her for the garage.
And then when you got your first house, you
Yeah,
had a
it
single-car
it just had
garage.
a single-car garage, and this was the car that went in.
And then subsequent, every house you've been in since,
Right.
it's been in the garage.
It's been garaged, yes. That's got a lot to do with it.
Yep.
I mean, even with the cars of today, with the plastic, you know, after 4 or 5 years, unless you keep something on that plastic.
In the first, 5 or 6 years, how long did you have it where it was just your regular everyday car? Where you commuted to work?
Yeah, I
and-
commuted to work, but
stores.
I took public transportation. I would say until the 70s probably. Then I wound up buying, of course, a second car so that my wife had trouble driving or learning on this for her license because it was a stick shift. So I bought a 61 Catalina.
So sometime in the early 70s, it was no longer the everyday car.
Right. Yeah. And maybe I can add this too. the car was broken into at least 2 times.
Yeah, you're lucky they
To
didn't
steal
get away with
8-track
it.
players, and the insurance company said to me, if you get another one, we're not insuring it.
Yeah.
And then one time I went to the movies, and I came out, and the window was open, and they stole the air cleaners and the chrome
The oil?
cap, right.
Wow.
So, and then I put an alarm in it, which I took out. It doesn't have an alarm anymore.
It was the kind that had the little key
Yeah,
in
on
the fender
side, right.
with the special little round barrel.
Right.
Yeah.
And the big siren under the hood that sounded like a police car.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to wrap this one up today. I think we covered a lot of topics. Please comment, like, subscribe, and if there's more interest, we'll do more videos. So, thanks for watching.